Hey guys, it's Jack. I just wanted to talk to you today about a way that you can help support the podcast if you're not already. To support the channel is to become a Patreon member. So we have Patreon memberships that start at just $5 a month. And when you sign up, you get access to all of our episodes ad free. That's the big bonus for that. I mean, we also do some Patreon bonus episodes for our subscribers. But this is the biggest and best way that you can support the Team House channel and podcast if you'd like to. And we really appreciate that. So go and check us out at patreon.com/the Team House.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Eyes On. I'm your host. I'm not the host, but my name is Dimitri. We
You
got
have to try to
Jason.
do the accent.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Eyes On. I'm your host, Andy Milburn. Milburn.
I'm Jason Lyons.
And I'm Jack Murphy,
Jack Murphy, the esteemed journalist, host of the Team House podcast, our dear leader.
renowned, infamous. Choose one.
Choose one and stick with it. All right. Jack's not really a subject matter expert on anything, really, but we have him here we're going to run down a bunch of stories going on right now. First and foremost, the big news from the weekend was the IDF hostage rescue in Gaza. That was a big one. Supposedly over 200 terrorists, if you're listening to the IDF, were killed during this, and 4 hostages were rescued, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jack, what do you got on that? Tell me everything you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I'll say this much is, I spoke to a source this week, and he confirmed that this was a Israeli unilateral operation. There was really no American military or intelligence support for it at all. So they did this one on their own. A targeted counterterrorism hostage rescue mission. Went in and pulled out 4 hostages from Gaza, and there are some differing perspectives, of course, as everything in this conflict. And the Gaza Health Ministry said, yeah, I think they did. I think it is confirmed they did a bunch of airstrikes to support their withdrawal out, and now it's going to be contentious of like how many people died in those airstrikes. And I think the Israeli government has even said there have been some collateral damage. Is it like 274 civilians the way the Gaza Health Ministry says? I don't know. I'd maybe take with a little bit of grain of salt on that. Um, and then the other interesting thing is the Palestinians are saying that that the Israelis used some deception tactics to come in using a aid vehicle ostensibly to infiltrate closer to the target area. There were other reports, I think it might have been even in an Israeli newspaper, reported that some of the operators posed as Palestinian refugees, like they were internally displaced people, posing as them, moving from one place, one town to the next, as a way to get closer to the target area with while being undetected. And I'm not sure if it's true or not. Some of the people are saying that they posed as aid relief workers because, and that would be probably illegal if they did that.
Yeah.
If you recall back in the day, like what was it, 2008, when the Colombians rescued American hostages that were held by FARC, the helicopter, and I mean, there was a deception operation that they were, they were Red Cross workers. And that turned into a bit of a controversy.
Yeah.
But I mean, now there's also some video footage, some helmet cam footage that the Israelis have released. And when they show the operators moving up to the target structure, I mean, they're wearing like full battle rattle, clearly identified as Israeli soldiers. So that would negate the idea that they were like in disguise as they got closer. But it's possible that 2 things happened, that a reconnaissance element came in close undercover, and then the assault element rolled in behind them. I mean, there's a number of different things. And whenever you talk about military operations, the devil's always in the details. And I won't claim that I know all of them on this particular mission.
So speaking of that helmet cam footage, I only saw a little piece of it, but did they engage anyone on the target? Any bad guys on the target? It didn't look like, from what I saw, it looked like they literally rolled into the room and grabbed them.
Yeah, I mean, and that could be because the camera footage was edited, possibly by the Israeli authorities, either censorship or they don't want to show something that's particularly gruesome. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just totally speculating. It's hard to believe that they didn't receive or engage enemy as they rescued the hostages. You can hear in the footage like a hell of a lot of incoming fire. I mean, there's a firefight breaking out all around them.
Okay. Cool. So, and I read, I think it was when you were on with Ward Carroll, that all four were from the same, all four of the hostages were from that music festival.
I believe they were.
I believe. Yeah. Okay. Because the one girl I recognized from when it first happened, October 7th or the 8th, the next day when they were throwing video, her picture, like of her being taken away, I guess.
And apparently the mission commander was wounded on the objective and passed away when they got to the hospital. So yeah, apparently they lost one officer during the raid.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's crazy. I can imagine. I was trying to think of it from an intel point of view, how they prepped that target. If I was an intel officer, I'd be, on this op, I'd definitely be talking to assets who live in the area or, are familiar with that area. What do they know about where they're being held? Are they actually there? How many bad guys are there? That sort of thing. So that must have been I'm curious to know, and I don't know that we ever will, how long the preparation for this took, or was it, hey, this is the intel we have of where they are, go get them?
Yeah, I mean, the operation, I hate to use the word complexity, it's overused, but these operations are difficult and complex, right? And any kind of hostage rescue usually is. So from what we do know, I mean, it's clear that a fair amount of planning went into this thing. And as you point out, any hostage rescue operation requires a high level of intelligence to be successful, to do a surgical raid.
Gotcha. Now, go ahead, D.
Is there any indication of like TFO or RRC or NSA like helping in terms of like intel?
Not on this one, no.
Okay. Okay. Now, the fact that it was done during the daylight, you think that indicates it's one of those, hey, in extremis, we go now? Because normally this would be done at night, right?
Yeah, especially when you're bringing in birds for the exfiltration. You'd want to do that under the cover of darkness. So I don't know why the decision was made to do it during daylight as opposed to at night. But obviously they felt that they had a high confidence of success. Maybe, yeah, you point out, I mean, it could be like part of, what you'd sometimes call an emergency assault plan, like the hostages are about to be killed or executed or something. So you go in and do the assault because it's it's worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really know what led into the decision to do this during hours of daylight.
And sorry to keep peppering you with this stuff, but
no, keep it up.
With the exception of the loss of the commander, rest in peace. Do you know of any huge hiccups that happened? I think you said something about a vehicle.
Yeah, there was again a report that one of the exfil vehicles got stuck on the way out. That they had either got stuck in a pothole or mechanical problems. I don't know what the issue is. So they had that on the way out.
Gotcha. I would ask D if he's got anything, but he fell asleep.
No, sorry, I'm looking at another story. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so that's four, who've been recovered. They looked relatively healthy in the video that I saw, as for, healthy for what they'd been
Hostages,
through. So,
yeah.
I'm hoping that, they can get the rest, or at least get some word on the rest. So I would think after this that Hamas would probably shuffle these folks around from wherever they were to other spots, to try to prevent this happening again.
Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing is when they do that, it opens up more opportunities potentially to detect the hostages being moved.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a part of the plan too. Like you're doing something hoping that the bad guys are going to get on cell phones and start
Yeah.
blabbing their mouths about what's
Yeah.
going on and say, hey, Ahmed, we're going to move the hostages over to, this street now. And, that opens up other doors, other opportunities for you to get people back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was actually, one of my first thoughts when I saw it was like an apartment building or something was, wouldn't it be better for the bad guys, keep them underground? If there's such a huge network underground, then why keep them there unless they were in the process of moving them from one spot to another and just stuck them there?
Yeah. And I mean, there's a couple of different things and it's all speculation, of course, but it could be that someone has to take care of the hostages. And there's like a sort of ratio that you need like 2 people to take care of 10 hostages or 4 people or because you have to have people guarding them at all times, and bringing them food and stuff like that. And, so if you're keeping the hostages down in tunnels, then you have to have, either Hamas members or auxiliaries, that are caretakers of the hostages, and keeping them alive. And I mean, yeah, are those people going to live in tunnels or are they going to live in houses? Right.
Yeah.
So it's like a question of like, where are you going to have, and then also as the difficulty in moving the hostages around. And then maybe it has something to do with some of the tunnels being destroyed as well.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
What's ballpark, like how many hostages are left?
Over 100, I believe.
Over 100.
Yeah.
Like confirmed alive, or we don't know. Like most like
not confirmed it publicly.
yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
All right. Next story I wanted to talk about was the top Hezbollah commander and 3 operatives killed in southern Lebanon yesterday by an Israeli strike. Talib Abdullah is the most senior member of the Lebanese terror group to be killed in 8 months of deadly border fighting with Israel. And in return, 80 rockets were fired at the north on Tuesday. What do we got cooking with that? Jack, thoughts?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, it's the continuation of this conflict, and it's I think Milburn laid out maybe the last time we talked about how there's this sort of like tit for tat, like you do something, we're going to do something, and it's all sort of like part of it is a little bit of a stage play. I hate to say that because people get killed, but it's like the Israelis do something, they know to keep their credibility, Hamas has to lob some rockets back at them. And so it's this sort of like almost arrangement, de facto arrangement that exists. But the problem is there's this increased drumbeats towards war in Lebanon with Hezbollah. And that opens up essentially a new military front in this conflict and escalates the chances of this conflict expanding into something much larger.
Yeah, I don't know if Israel not necessarily can afford it, but wants that right now. They got enough shit going on.
I think they're overwhelmed by what's going on in Gaza.
Yeah.
I can't see like how they're going to fight a 2-front conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. What else we got, D? You were talking about Poland before.
Yeah, we'll get to that one last. I mean, this one that happened yesterday also was this is more domestic, I guess. 8 suspected terrorists with possible ISIS ties arrested in New York, LA, and Philly. The men from Tajikistan came through the US southern border, and their criminal background checks came back clean at the time they crossed. But they ended up getting swept up here in America, which is kind of scary.
So they came across the border legally.
Yeah.
Yeah. One actually even used that like One Border app or whatever it is. Yeah, it's for asylum. Everybody, they all checked out clean. So it's scary, like you were just saying, D. I mean, nobody can argue, hey, we knew they were criminals. Why'd we let them in? They did it technically the way they were supposed to do it, and they made it in. And this didn't, I know that the article I think came out yesterday, but this is like months. As soon as they got into the country, they were under observation. They were being surveilled, and checks were done on them. So then it was a multi-state operation was put together to round these guys up. I think it was one guy who actually wasn't one of the original group, someone that they hooked up with had been on their FBI's radar as well. So when the two met, that group and then this one guy, that was what the catalyst was. Is like, okay, round them up.
Wow. Has anything come out about like what the plot was or how far along it was?
I haven't seen anything. I'm going to keep reaching out to my contacts about it, but I haven't seen anything about what the plot was.
I'm very interested because, that they came across the border, and there is obviously border security issues that we need to figure out and resolve, but we really haven't seen terrorists infiltrating by coming across the southern border. There's always been fears of it. Sometimes paranoia, but I don't think we've seen an actual terror plot come across the southern border until now.
Yeah. Well, despite what people are screaming, that everyone coming across as a terrorist now, and they're whoever sent them, because I'm sure it wasn't just random, was smart enough to send ones who they have a clean record, so they get in the way that you quote unquote should get in. And once they're here, then they can collect and, pop off whatever they're planning. But thank God. I mean, I hate to say it, but the fact of a key factor is where they were coming from. Their countries of origin played a big role in them being profiled, for lack of a better term. And in this case, it paid off. Not saying that everyone that comes from Syria, Iraq, Jordan, whatever, has nefarious intentions, but that I'm sure has had a big part in playing, or big part in the fact that they were being surveilled afterwards once they made it into the country.
Yeah. So these guys are from Tajikistan.
Yeah. Even then, I mean, that's just probably enough to say, okay, let's keep an eye on these guys, and sometimes they're already here, and this is not a terror plot thing, but Jack, you remember, I want to say it was back in 2010 or so, we had that big spate of Afghan students that were down at I think it was Fort Bragg or one of the other ones, and they just kept just walk off the base and disappear. I mean, some of those still haven't been rounded up, so who knows? I'm sure that it's not
they turn up at a strip club at Fort Lauderdale or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm sure in most cases it's not a terror plot. It's just a case of I don't want to go back. But
there was that one case, you remember, a few years back, to Saudi. It was a Saudi student on a military base.
It was down in Pensacola.
Yeah.
So you never know. Never know. No. And then you may have, I don't know if you talked about this on Team House, the shooting down at Fort Bragg, the Russian
Chechen, I think, right?
Chechen, yeah, the contractor for that energy company,
the telecom company.
Yeah. Some crazy.
Yeah, I don't know everything about what happened there, or by any means. I know a few things or some interesting details. I'm interested to see how all of that pans out.
Yeah.
If that guy really had some sort of nefarious intentions, or was he just a telecom employee? Because the employer put out like a press release, like, we stand behind our boy. He's going to be exonerated in court, all this. Like, that's not something an intelligence platform does, right? Like, they would just pull a fade and disappear out of America. Yeah. Like, you're not going to court and batting for your dead asset. It doesn't work like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when I first was reading the article and I saw the company was out of New Jersey, I was like, God damn it. New Jersey again. We do it again. Yeah, we did it again. Yeah, but that's some crazy. I mean, it happened at night, right? If I remember, or dusk. In the evening, dusk.
It was still light out, but it was like the sun was setting.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You see somebody taking pictures, your kids are in the area. Now this is based on what I've read. Kids are in the area. It's kind of hokey to you. I'm not sure where it turned violent. I heard that it turned violent, or escalated before the shooting, but yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of details I don't think we're getting.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there as far as on the military side that I'll tell you guys after we finish doing the show. I'm not going to say it publicly
Yeah.
because I'm not going to publicly identify that Army officer at this time. And you know, he deserves a chance to be, you know, cleared in court as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, you got to assume this guy was highly trained, and like this probably isn't the route if you're getting surveilled for real, is to just
no, it's not
shoot a guy.
Yeah,
I'm not an expert, but
it's not what they're trained to do either.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not trained. Like if you're under surveillance, you're not supposed to go and confront the surveillance team and shoot
absolutely
them.
not.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's not in the farm handbook.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know?
No. And
this Army officer is a farm trained case officer, as I
really?
Yes.
Oh man. See, yeah. And we're absolutely, even if you're in a vehicle, you're running an SDR and you think that you're covered, you're not doing that Hollywood. Let me hook this first right, then flip a UE. Let me do that. That's you would do that, but it's your last point before you make it's your last decision point. You can go into like a neighborhood where you know there's only one way in, one way out, start flipping UEs and stuff like that aggressively. It's called going aggressive, but you're not doing that right off the bat, because now you've just told whoever's following you, okay, this person has something to hide, you know. So
you know, I've been doing some research for a separate story, and you know, the FBI interestingly has a unit that specializes in this, that like if you're an FBI agent, or it could be requested from another governmental agency, and like you're under surveillance, you have an active threat, like Iranians are parked outside in front of your house, this like FBI van with a bunch of dudes with MP5s will pull up and just like rip dudes out of their cars. Like they don't like it's specifically for active threats, and from what I understand, these dudes do not fuck around at all.
Yeah, I mean, let them do it, you know. You be the innocent, oh my god, what's happening, you know, but let them do that shit. Crazy.
Jack, you got anything? Tell me what what are you working on? Give us everything.
So Sean Naylor, who, you know, I work on this on the high side with, on this national security news outlet. He's working on this story about a legendary CIA officer who was a Green Beret in Vietnam, has a Distinguished Service Cross, that may be upgraded to a Medal of Honor potentially. So that's in the works right now. I'm working on a story about Havana syndrome, and pretty deep into it, and I've spoken to a lot of the I'm really interested in speaking to the original people in Havana who were hit. And I've talked to a number of them, and I'm going to talk to another one shortly. And I've been talking to a lot of the doctors, a lot of the like CIA doctors, and like these are like really interesting people. They're like practicing doctors that see patients, but also have a top secret clearance and like consult with the White House and with the CIA on like, you know, CBRN threats and stuff like this. Like it's very, very interesting stuff. So I'm working on that article right now. And once that's done, yeah, there's some other interesting stuff that I think Sean and I are going to move on to.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the Medal of Honor article, because as you know, he was a mentor of mine. Really, really good guy.
Check out the HIGHSIDE. The link is in the description. Jack and Sean Naylor, you know, the guy who actually wrote the book on JSOC.
Good stuff. Yeah. So can I ask this then about without you giving away anything about the Havana syndrome thing? Are crickets involved? Because that's what I'm reading. I'm hearing like crickets or beetles or some.
That was one of the things that I think the Jason group trotted out there, that these guys were just hearing crickets. That was ruled out pretty early on in the investigation. And obviously the inner ear damage and the damage done to the cerebellum, that's detectable and has been detected in different kinds of there's different types, as I've learned, of functional magnetic resonance imagery. One of them is called full body, I believe, fMRI.
Mhm.
And so there's different types that look at the brain. But what I'm getting at is that between that and also the blood marker, biomarker indicators, that are indicators of TBI, there's quite a bit of physical evidence that these people were hurt by
Gotcha.
something.
Yeah.
And, obviously crickets are not going to cause inner ear damage or
Yeah.
damage to your cerebellum.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that and I was like, wait, well, I mean, I'm no medical person or scientist, but I'm like, damn, they got trained crickets against this. It's crazy. Yeah.
Some of the
anything-
other stuff people have been freaking out about is that Russian flotilla that's like off the coast of Florida heading to Cuba.
Mm.
There was a lot of like Twitter chatter, like standoff between Russia and US, Meanwhile, it's probably at this point, probably more than a quarter of the Russian Navy is literally going to Cuba because they're so run
Yeah,
down.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, Russia is not a credible threat. Like
Mm.
they're not a credible military threat to us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They pose a significant counterintelligence threat, maybe even, if they decided to conduct acts of sabotage against the United States or something along those lines. But like, is the Russian Navy going to come and bombard Tampa or something? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, they're gonna come
Hopefully.
and pound Key West.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I
What-
think they're just trying to they're just flexing what little muscle they have, because I think was it Putin had said, we're willing to arm our enemies, America's enemies, against them. And people were throwing up headlines. Is this another Cuban Missile Crisis? Blah, blah, blah. I just don't see it.
They already arm our enemies against us, and our other
Exactly.
enemies are arming Russia against us. So it's like, what changes?
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to have some sort of use a threat, you have to have leverage.
Mhm.
And you don't have leverage when you're threatening to do something you've always been doing anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Oh man. What else you got, D?
You guys are really running me ragged today. I mean, it's more about the Poland rounding up a bunch of Russian agents, I would say, because a lot of them are, I guess, dual national, Polish and Russian citizens. So, just running sabotage operations. I mean, the Poles are probably super busy doing this. It's probably a big factor in a big thing on what they're looking at. I'm sure they're using a bunch of bandwidth to try and stop it because.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot at stake, and when it's internal, to me, I've always thought that was the biggest issue. It wasn't Russia, it wasn't China. It's always, to me, it's internally, whatever, that guy that you see every day at the gate, you show your ID to, where those loyalties lie. Not that we should be, paranoid about everyone, but that to me is the biggest threat because that is what lulls us to sleep, and so you have these dual nationals who, have competing loyalties, and that's when shit like this happens, sabotage or or even it's not even necessarily dual nationals. It's one who get caught up in this YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever stuff, and they see all these propaganda videos, and then they start sympathizing, and next thing you know, like that British officer, they're handing over secrets.
The interesting thing that I haven't really seen anyone put together in the media is that, there's sort of a global game, a global shadow war going on, in that you saw all of these acts of sabotage in Russia, mysterious fires and explosions. Who's doing that? I don't know. And now you're seeing this stuff starting to happen in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And you also have to factor the Nord Stream. We still don't really know what happened there. You have to factor that into it. Like, each act of sabotage carries with it an implied message to the people who are being sabotaged, that you're under threat, we can get to you, and we can strike you harder in the future. And I think it's very interesting to look at how, all of these acts of sabotage happened right when Russia invaded Ukraine and Russia. All these sabotage acts in Russia, they seem to have dwindled off. And one could speculate that it's because the sleeper cells are either running out of demo in their cache site locations, or they've been rolled up by Russian authorities, or they were compromised enough that they have to clear the country and get out of there.
Yeah.
And now, but here we are a couple of years later, and all of a sudden you're starting to see this escalation in acts of sabotage in Poland. Why is that? And why now? And I think that you have to see it as like, is this retaliation for that?
Yeah.
Like, you did it to us. It took us a couple of years to build up the intelligence infrastructure in your country to conduct these acts of sabotage. Now that we've built it up, we're going to start doing it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I don't think I'm speculating a bit here, but I mean, I don't think it's totally irrational to view it in that lens.
Absolutely. And why wouldn't you want to divert attention and stow fear, in countries that are not directly involved in Ukraine or the conflict, but border it, or, of sending equipment or something like that? Because now you have the ripple effect of not only generating fear, but you could generate sympathy against the war. People saying, look, this is happening to us because you guys are giving them tanks, that sort of thing. So there's definitely second and third order effect.
Is there a possibility of how high is that threat in terms of sabotage and arson, like for our factories, like in Scranton and the one that they're building in Dallas, for the 155 millimeter shells that are like obviously like gold there?
It exists. And I mean, I don't know really, Jason, I mean, maybe you can comment on the security and the counterintelligence around those facilities. But I think there's a great book that I've recommended in the past. I think it's called Burn, Bomb, and Destroy. And it's about the German sabotage campaign in the United States 100 years ago. And they were blowing up ammo dumps. They were putting incendiary charges on ships that were bringing supplies over to Europe. I mean, it's very interesting to see how that campaign was run in the United States back then.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, these people are vetted. The people who work there, security, whatever it is, they're vetted. I don't know what the exact process is, but I'm sure that they go through a pretty extensive background check and, all those sort of things. But again, this is me harping on the insider threat, but you could get through scot-free, like these guys that came across the border. You get through scot-free, and then you're working there for 2 years or whatever, and you start falling on hard times financially. You're going through a divorce, whatever it is, and the Russians, the Chinese, whoever it is, takes note of that stuff because they are watching these people and approaches. Hey, we got the solution to your problems. All we need you to do is ABC. So it could be that everybody, all 100 people who work there, are vetted fine, but all it takes is one bad day, one bad, a Hanson type thing where, your finances are going to shit, your marriage is going to shit, all the perfect storm. And yeah, I don't necessarily see it coming from the outside. I could see it coming from the inside if it was going to happen here.
All of that takes like some deliberate targeting by foreign intelligence services. Like, that's not something that like these like Tajikis are going to throw together. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just worthwhile to point out that, you'd have to specifically target the facility and the people who work there and spot and assess them. And it would require the Russians to infiltrate competent, trained, like tradecraft trained intelligence officers into the United States.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. This is not some guy sitting in his basement, I'll show them kind of thing, especially from the outside. Like, not somebody, let's just say in Ohio, some guy who's like, fuck the government. I'm just going to build this thing and toss it over the fence kind of thing, because he's going to get shot. Whereas someone who is targeted, who has knowledge and ability to get into these facilities, they're targeted, and it would be a month, sometimes years operation to for a foreign intelligence service to target that person, work them up, because this is the United States. Whether, for better or worse, people are pretty much loyal. At the end of the day, we're a little less averse to saying, okay, Ivan, give me $2,000. I'll do this, which is going to cost my life probably. So it's probably months or years to bring that person around to even considering doing an act of sabotage. It's one thing to
Right.
insert a computer virus than it is to plant a bomb. So
It's I mean, on that note, I mean, it's actually pretty interesting the security we have around our nuclear infrastructure in this country. I probably shouldn't go into too much detail, but I know of one facility in particular that like they even war gamed like, what if the IRGC parachuted a battalion of Iranians in here? Could we defend against it? And like it does, that facility does have to be able to defend against it. So there's some pretty interesting stuff that goes on there, and we do have special ops guys who red team those facilities to see, you know, is it possible to sneak in there? Is it possible to assault the facility? All that kind of contingencies are war gamed.
Yeah, I was in nuclear security before I went to the agency, and you're absolutely right. They're I don't know if they still call them CAF teams, but they are SF, some former, some current, who and they take some of the security team from each facility and train them as well, just so you have that insider thing. And they run war games all the time, live and tabletop.
Yep.
Yeah. Scary shit.
You got to assume nowadays too, like the cyber threat is just as or even more, you know, of a threat than the physical threat of it.
Absolutely.
So they, you know, hopefully are pouring money into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely can't speak to that. I barely turn this computer on, but yeah. But again, people are, you know, we get so hyped up on even when it comes to cyber threats, hey, shutting down a centrifuges or something like that. That could be something as simple as inviting a program into the system that shuts down production of a small part for F-35s or something like that. You know, it doesn't have to be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, poisoning the supply chain is like a huge thing, and it's something that our intelligence community looks at doing to the enemy as well, to our adversaries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was great. Jack, where can they find you?
You can find my screeds across the internet. I'm on Twitter at Jack Murphy RGR. You can find me in Sean's work as well on the HIGHSIDE, which is a Substack you can go check out. And then, of course, you can find me and D on the Team House every Friday on the YouTubes or wherever you go for podcasts.
Jason, where can they find you?
Right here. No, I'm on Instagram. It's just my personal account, but I'm boring. So
everything, all the links will be in the description. Definitely check out the HIGHSIDE with Jack and Sean. They do work that you're not going to find the New York Times doing or the Wall Street Journal doing, really.
If you go check it out now, I mean, there's a ton of long form articles on there. We got stuff about JSOC spinning up for Gaza. We got stuff about the CIA Omega teams in Afghanistan, the special forces Greenlight teams that parachuted in with backpack nukes, all kinds of cool stuff on there.
And that's parlayed into a book about special forces history.
Eventually, I'm working on a book. Yeah.
Sure. Should be great. Of course, patreon.com/theteamhouse. That's the best way to support this show because YouTube continues to screw us and screw up a ton of other creators too. It's been it's been a big change and it's kind of wild. If you're listening to us on audio, don't forget to rate and review it. Do what you can to support patreon.com/theteamhouse. All the links will be in the description. And yeah, thanks guys. This was a good show.
yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, Jason.